Hey, let me show you something. Come on. Come on. Here, have a look at this. Right here. All right, welcome back. Episode 102 of Chaotically Intolerant. We have Michael here. He's back. We're going to talk some baseball. I think we said we were going to try and do this once a month, and that just that just didn't happen. Honestly, I forgot about it at the end of April. I was like, oh, I think I realized it like mid-March. I was like, we haven't done our review yet. And then it came to mid-March, and I was like, or to the end of May. And I was like, I should probably text him, and I think I forgot.
Yeah, here we are. It's the perfect time to do it, though. All-star break, and get a little baseball breather before it really starts to ramp up in the second half.
Yeah, I guess let's talk about the All-Star game, because first off, I mean, the home run derby. I think we say this every year since they have the new rule. The clock just doesn't work. Not in my opinion, it doesn't work. I know they said it took too long because guys were taking too many pitches. You can put some sort of restriction on how many pitches these guys take, but I mean, what the hell are we doing here? We're not even watching the balls land. The players, when Sammy Sosa hit a 500-something foot home run in the early 2000s, and he just watched it the entire time. That's badass. They can't even sit and watch him.
Yeah, I think it's for a home run derby, it's terrible. And I was talking to a friend about the whole. Do you remember the old system of the outs? Right, it was 10 outs. It wasn't just a clock. And I get why the clock is appealing, but I was thinking that as I was watching, I was like, you don't even get. You're looking at one ball. I mean, they need to have like a try picture in picture. So and even that's confusing. You're watching like one ball, and then you're like, which ball was that he just hit? It's crazy because the numbers also look really inflated. But I think if you had 10 outs, like there's a little more of like a palpable, energy and tension with every pitch when you only have 10 outs. And it really makes guys maximize their swings. I think I prefer the old way.
Yeah, I think I do. I have agreed with people on the pit. They would take so many pitches, it would take forever at times. Because I remember sitting and watching the home run derby, and I was like, dude, this is like 3 hours of these guys. Like, I love watching home runs, but it's been 3 hours. Like, I feel like you have to maybe do, like, you get 10 pitches if there's 10 outs. Or, like, 10, you can take 10, up to 10 pitches along with your 10 outs, just to even things out, make it sound pretty. But just this pitch clock, or the clock, I mean, baseball just wants to speed everything up. These guys get exhausted too. I don't really consider it to be a stamina event either. I think it should always just be about hitting home runs, and hitting home runs, you don't need stamina to hit a home run. You need strength.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the whole idea, I find it ironic, that everything's on a clock, and yet we're still playing 162 games. The season's still taking 6 months. It's longer now in terms of the calendar. They're starting, they just released their schedule for next year. It's starting in March 28th. The World Series is going into November. So this idea of shortening the game,
and it's a leap year next year too.
It is a leap year next year.
Extra day.
That's right. There's one more day until the season starts, at least, if you look at it that way. But it's baseball's a grind. And it's sort of funny just that they're going away from that in a sense. And, I'm playing in rec leagues now, and everyone's kind of joking, like, maybe we should limit how many throws over to first. And then there's the other part of it. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's rec league. Everybody can steal. Catchers have a hard time throwing guys out. So, but Like, it was fun. It was not. It was. I enjoyed seeing. I'm an Orioles fan. Seeing Adley Rutschman hit 27 homers, even in a losing effort. But I don't know. You're right. You knew it wouldn't be long before the clock started to become a contention point among fans.
I loved also watching the guys like maybe mid round they just start walking around, just taking a break,
Yeah.
chatting it up. I think that's a fun part of it. They'll chat it up with some of the other guys on the sideline. Like you don't get the interaction that they had last time. It's just you step up and you try and hit as many as you possibly can in that amount of time. And I think that's also part of the reason why some guys aren't participating to avoid injury.
Yeah.
Because you're more likely to get injured if you're doing that rapid fire rather than taking time in between.
Yeah. Definitely. And it really, they talk about guys getting their swings messed up because of the home run derby. You're probably also more likely to mess up your swing in an endurance sort of mode because you're just like, I got to survive this, and then before you know it, you're losing your mechanics, and maybe that trickles over into your second half. I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, if you want to make it again, I mean, baseball, like expanding the postseason was not a good idea because baseball's always been about exclusivity, right? And now it's 12 teams, and it feels inevitable it's going to be 14 teams at some point. And it's kind of like a home run derby. I would love it if those pitches were a little more like, okay, you only have 10. Like, you got to make these count. Like, oh, he didn't hit that one. It's not just like, okay, go, 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 go. Like, we're feeding into this era and age that we live in of attention deficit disorder among
Yeah.
people. So, uh, you know, and I don't remember how they used to do it with the seat. Like, there wasn't seating before, right? Was it a tournament, or was it just
I
all
think it
eight
was
guys?
I think it was more of just yeah, I have a I can't remember exactly, but I from what I remember it was just the first round and then a certain number of guys got eliminated.
Right, and
Second
then
round, certain number, and then they just kept going until there was a winner. Until you go down to the final two.
yeah,
Actually, let's look it up. Let's look up just David Ortiz, I think, won the 2010 home run derby. So
thinking about was it Bobby Abreu or something? He won. I mean, there was one where the last one at Old Yankee Stadium in '08 where Josh Hamilton hit like 100 home runs and in one
yeah.
round lost because he just gassed himself out, and I think Abreu ended up winning it.
So the 2010, yeah, how they did it is, yeah, they had 8, they cut it down to 4 going into round 2, and then they cut it down to 2. And it
Mm.
was Hanley Ramirez, former Red Sox, versus David Ortiz, who Hanley was on the Marlins at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like Nick Swisher was in that. Holy shit.
Mm.
Chris Young when he was good. Matt Holliday, Miggy, Corey Hart. Just hearing those names
Very
brings it
hard.
back to me.
Oh, Brewer. Sunglasses at night,
Yeah.
not to be confused, right? I always get some random guys in there back in the day. I mean, now it just feels like they go more with the traditional power guys, or they might just tap into a guy having a really
Well, like
good.
Mookie Betts was in the home run derby, and I mean, obviously he hits homers, but he's definitely not a traditional power guy.
Right. I was
Like in,
surprised. Yeah, Luis Robert. I mean, obviously he's got 25 homers, but hadn't thought of him as I playing with him, and I play with the White Sox in MLB The Show, and never struck me as a power guy there. Oh well, probably not.
also Adolis Garcia was that his pitcher was trying to strike him out. It seemed like.
Maybe
I mean, he was throwing sliders. He
a
was
lot of
they were diving at the corner of the strike zone.
probably very miffed Cardinals fans watching, remembering Randy Arozarena and Adolis Garcia, both in the organization not too long ago.
I was a little shocked that Randy Arozarena was in.
Yeah.
I don't think of him as a power guy, and especially I'm just big anti Rays. I just don't like him. I just don't believe in the Devil Rays at all, like
Me
at all.
neither. Me neither.
Um, and then the actual All Star game, they've ruined it. I mean, Major League Baseball has ruined the actual All Star game. It used to mean something which I always loved. I think everybody loved that. It was called the Midsummer Classic for a reason.
Well, now you liked the home field stakes?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think it's
Really?
so dumb. I think it is the dumbest thing in the world, and that's why I love it.
You got the first part right.
It makes no sense as to why they did it, but it gave the players a little something to play for. I remember when they gave a shit when I think it was who trucked somebody at home.
Heroes,
He
yeah.
rose, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Well,
even
yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, with the Pro Bowl, I mean, which is now
oh,
gone completely, and that's a sad. Don't even get me started there. But yeah, and what happens now if it goes to extra innings in the All Star game? It's a home
I
run
think it's a
derby.
home run off. It's a home run derby.
Not the worst thing in the world. I mean,
No, that's not the word. That's a good rule.
I remember the 2002 game where there was that clip of like the umpires and Bud Selig talking about what do we do? What do we do? And they called it a tie because they were out of pitchers, and that was after that 2002 season. They for the next I think 14 seasons they said, well, the winner of the they got lucky, by the way. I point this out. It was between 03 and 16. It was that rule was in effect, and I think only 2 times did it actually backfire, quote unquote, where the team that had fewer wins got home field in the World Series. The Cardinals in 2011, they ended up taking advantage of that, and the Cleveland Indians in 16 against the Cubs
And they
didn't
lost.
take advantage of that. Lost game 6 and 7 at home.
Yeah.
I think one year the Red Sox and Cardinals were tied, so it maybe didn't matter, but they kind of lucked out because I think had they had a few seasons in a row where like an 88 win wild card team was hosting like a 107 win team, I think that rule may have gone away faster than it did. I think the fact that it stuck around 14 years is pretty fascinating. But then again, Rob Manfred is really not tuned in
No,
on anything.
he's not the brightest at all. I
Mm-mm.
feel like what they should do is just take a massive stack of cash
Mm-hmm.
and just put it right behind home plate. That's gonna make those guys play.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it can't be like a small amount of money. It's got to be at least $1 million per player. It can't be small. Like I want to see these guys putting 100% out there.
Fight to the death. Yeah. Steel cage death match. Stop.
I also think that baseball is still. I mean, they still have the best All-Star game of all. Out of all the four major sports, like football, obviously they've gone to flag football. The NBA is just a joke ever since they instituted that draft and they went away from East versus West, and then they did like the first to 160 points.
Ugh,
Is that what it was? I mean, it was
something like that. Yeah.
no defense has ever played. They literally somebody will be driving, they'll just step out of the way. Baseball is like the one thing that you can't fake it. You have to throw a pitch and you got to swing
Mm-hmm.
and you have to catch it. You just can't fake it that way. I mean, obviously you can throw a game if you really want to, but these guys they're not going to do that. But you're not going to see too many like diving catches and extra hustle plays in the All-Star game, which that sucks.
It's a shame.
And then I also want to see the jerseys. They're actual jerseys. I hate the jerseys that are themed after
I'm with you.
the city. They
I'm with you.
get the fuck rid of it. Go
They
back.
did that. So with the Pro Bowl, they never did that. And it always kind of worked in the Pro Bowl because it was like, they were like the Hawaii theme. It was like blue and red.
Yeah, that's a little different,
okay.
I guess.
Because football, yeah, it's different the way you have to see obviously like the quarterback doesn't want to throw to the wrong guy. But in baseball, I agree. And it's like, okay, if the NL's the home team, then all the NL players can wear their home jerseys. And if the AL, you see like and it's nice because look, from a marketing standpoint, you could say, well, these new jerseys, they're using them
you can sell them
to market those, but people might be tuning in as a casual fan being like, oh, I never noticed how shiny the Texas Rangers jerseys were or whatever. So
yeah,
I like it because you're right. Especially when you consider that teams like the Oakland A's and Detroit Tigers, I mean, I can almost guarantee you, even a lot of Oakland A's fans or Detroit Tiger fans watching the game, if they're just watching Brent Rooker or Michael Lorenzen out there They may not know just based on his face. They might want to just see their team's jersey represented, and so yeah, probably
I
good
think
for the
they're
Royals that they didn't wear theirs because Batista was the losing pitcher. But I'm with you.
I think there's a little bit more pride too. You take in rooting for the American League or the National League
Sure.
when your team has jerseys out there. I mean, I don't care. Like the visual aspect of it, I look at it and I'm like, oh well, the Boston B is on their hat, but besides that, you can't even notice it. It's all the same. I think that's kind of the point of the All-Star game is these very different teams and different guys come together and play one fun game.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get it's Major League Baseball just trying to sell more jerseys. Like that's all they hope for. They hope that they hope that Mariner fans and people from Seattle will buy them. And whatever, the team that's hosting it, they'll buy them, which is who would wear that?
They were gross. I mean, they were like Mariner themed, I guess, right? So it makes sense. And it
Yeah.
was a nice moment in the ninth inning, by the way, when Julio came up and the crowd is chanting his name, is the hometown, and sort of anticlimactic he walked. But still, it was kind of like a fun moment there. And yeah, yeah, a good game though. I mean, look, the NL finally broke their long losing streak. It was 2012 was the last time they had
Yeah.
won, and that was Melky Cabrera or something was like the MVP, and then he got suspended like a month later, and the Giants won the World Series without him.
I heard somebody say that they should let like some of the steroid guys do their own home run derby at the All-Star break. And
Barry Bonds.
whoever wins gets to stay in the league that year and continue using for the rest of the year.
Oh, that's okay. I thought you meant like the historic steroid guys, the supposed, the most.
No, the every year, like when they get popped, in the beginning of the new league year, they
Yeah,
can come back. Or if their suspension is in this year. Obviously, if you get suspended in the second half of the year, you're screwed. But I don't really
right,
care about the logistics of that.
right,
Just do steroids before. Make sure you get caught before so you can get your
right,
chance of redemption.
right.
Because I think it'll really show like I've like turned into a guy where I'm like steroids. It doesn't matter. Like you still have to hit the ball.
Yeah. Oh,
That's the harder part of baseball is
you even
actually
get more
hitting the ball.
right.
You
Yeah.
can be as strong as you want. Look, you can be the mountain from Game of Thrones, like that guy, but he's not touching a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Definitely not hitting it 350 feet.
True. I mean, if that were true, I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger could have been, the greatest baseball player that ever
Yeah.
played. It doesn't work that way. It's, bat speed. It's technique. You're right. I mean, not to excuse performance enhancing drugs per se, but I understand where you're coming from. I think Barry Bonds was an amazing hitter. Maybe without steroids, he only hit 710 homers instead of whatever he ended at
Yeah,
76.
he was still a
Yeah.
fantastic home run hitter before. I don't understand why he did it.
Yeah, it's just low hanging fruit for people to sort of use that
Yeah.
as an argument against guys, and
Yeah, I just see it as
he was
I
the only
guess I
guy.
can understand the argument of like this is the rule and you still couldn't follow it. Like what's wrong with you? Because Isaiah Rogers, Colts, Colts cornerback, a
For
couple Colts
gambling.
just
Yeah,
got popped for gambling, and it's like, dude, the NFL is partnered with DraftKings, and DraftKings is displayed everywhere.
yeah,
But it's like insider trading, and even if it wasn't, it's still just a rule. You just can't follow the rule. Like if you don't agree with the rule, then go to the players union and say, "I want this changed. Let's get this changed." But no, they're not going to do that.
yeah, yeah. That's
So
fair.
I didn't mean to get us into a steroid conversation, but
It's all
we
good.
got there anyways. It's one of the I think it is one of the more popular topics in baseball still.
Well, and if it was only like one guy that had been doing it, if Barry Bonds was like the only guy being accused and no one else was, then you might say, okay, well, but in a time when all these big Seiko and A Rod and Bond, Sosa, McGuire all did, either
Yeah.
theoretically or definitely did it. I mean, it's kind of like, well, it kind of cheapens that argument anyway.
I mean, people don't remember that it saved baseball. That literally saved the game from
1998, yeah.
I mean, baseball could be like viewed as hockey now if that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. Or it could have been viewed as MLS, which Lionel Messi going to Miami, big news for Floridian. I mean,
Yeah.
not good for me because I don't want tourists to keep coming here, but
That's fair.
it's too busy. But I might try to make my way down there for one game just to see Messi. I mean, I've heard tickets are insane, so I'll have to find my way in. Um, but let's talk like preview for the second half of the season, and we'll just go down the list here.
Sure.
American League East. My goodness.
Not over. Look like
Not
it's
over at all. I'm just gonna take my time to say that I was 100% right about the Red Sox at this point. I said they could have a winning record and be in dead last because this division is just that good, and I'm not gonna toot my own horn. I'm not.
Well, you said they remind you a little bit of the 13 team, and I could see that. I mean, they don't obviously have the level of pitching, and and
Mhm.
that's that they get into a lot of slugfest, but they're gritty, they're scrappy, and I have to say, Alex Cora is a difference maker as a manager because when they lost him in 2020, and it was just totally different vibe, but he's gotten them to overachieve, I think. And for me, I mean, I don't. There's not a lot of guarantees in life. There's death, there's taxes, and that the Rays won't win the World Series. I think I can make that guarantee right now. I mean, I think. Look, hats off to them. They do it every year, but I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that says if you're the Rays, you have to go make a big splash. Like if you're ever gonna
Yeah,
finally
absolutely.
really legitimize what you've been doing down there for a decade and a half, you have to really go for it. And even if it doesn't work, I think you have to show your fan base that you're willing to try to sell out to get that championship. They legit won. If they won it in 2020, I think people still would view it as, the same way they do the Dodgers. But they have so many injuries right now. I mean,
Hmm.
completely decimated. I mean, most of their rotation now, McClanahan's down, and they lost Springs early on. Rasmussen's done for the year. They never had Shane Baz for one single pitch this year. Their bullpen, they piece it together. They pick up a lot of scrap heap guys like Jake Diekman and Zach Littell.
Yeah, former Red Sox, Jake Diekman.
Jake Diekman's
He was
been around
terrible.
the block, former a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach Littell had a great year for the Giants 2 years ago, but they're counting on a lot of guys that were cast off by other teams, and they faded a bit. And they had an amazing start. I don't know though. I'm not really sold. I mean, I'm an Orioles fan, so I'm hoping the Orioles can overtake them for the division. They're tied in the loss column. Um, what are your thoughts? Give me your thoughts in the East. I just kind of rambled on about how much the Rays kind of suck, but
Well, first off, I totally agree with you about the Rays. The Rays are. I agree with you about the Rays, 100% wholeheartedly. I love watching them crumble too. It's just my favorite thing in the world because everybody down here that is a Rays fan, they're not legit Rays fans. Like I don't ever see them like actually watching a Rays game. I've never like if you bring up baseball, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm a Rays fan," and I'm like, okay, sure, you're a fan of that team, the expansion team. All right, buddy. Um, I just they honestly, I would say this: if they went out and made the big splash that I think a lot of people are thinking about, there's a lot of different teams that could make a big splash. The biggest one is Shohei, and if they sneak in there, then they're never going to spend the money. It'll never happen. But if they did, I would say, okay, now they're going to win the title. Like it's almost like there's no way they don't. If they go out and get Shohei, like they would, like Kevin Cash would be fired if they went out and get Shohei after starting like this and completely crumbling and not winning a title. Let me think. So the Yankees, I love it.
yeah,
Oh man, I love this too. I love watching the Yankee fans go absolutely ballistic. They I mean they talk down to the Red Sox, but the last 20 years it's just been complete domination by the Red Sox in that rivalry. It's 4-1 in titles. It's not even really a rivalry. I mean, they haven't beaten us in the playoffs at all. We beat them or they beat us in 03, so that was technically 20 years ago. And then 04 we beat them, 18 we beat them, and 21 in the wild card game we
yep.
beat them. with their best pitcher that they gave like what $300 million to in Garrett Cole.
They've beaten them in every different round that you can play a team now, right?
Yeah, which is it is pure domination, which they dominated us for the last literally probably the last 80 years
Yeah,
before that.
86 years, right? The curse of the Bambino is they
Yeah.
put on its ear in 04. And
I think the Yankees won in like 1920, maybe. So that was like B when the domination starts. But it's a new era, and these Yankees fans, I mean, they're losing their mind over the patch going on the jersey because the pinstripes and the history behind it. They can't handle one patch. Like every Major League Baseball team has a patch. Get over yourself. Um, them saying, I heard some people saying Aaron Judge should sue Dodger Stadium for his toe injury.
right.
That's crazy to me. I would never say that. It's a baseball game. You're gonna get hurt at times, and just because it's your big bad Judge, like stop bitching and crying. It's constant with them. It's the constant bitching and crying, and I love to see them fail. And they failed every single time except for '09.
Yeah, they haven't been to a World Series since '09. I mean, I think they've lost 5 straight American League Championship series as well. Like 10, 12, 17, 19, and 22. And then they've lost, what, 3 of those to the Astros.
Yeah.
And to me, they haven't gotten better. If anything, they've taken a step back this year. I mean, you forget they had an amazing start last year. I think they started 61-23.
Oh, they were out of the gates. They were gunning, absolutely gunning.
Yeah, and it caught up to them. Reality caught up to them in a big way. I mean, they squeaked by the Guardians, a team that probably wasn't supposed to be there to begin with, and then just the Astros wiped the floor with them, which has just been the case for the last 7 or 8 years since they started facing off in the postseason. But they get Carlos Rodon back. They've gotten 1 start out of him. They've got Severino's got an ERA like over 7 or something. I mean,
I hate that guy too. I
yeah.
just despise him.
I mean, Cole's numbers, I hear him. He starts the All-Star game. He's in the Cy Young. Do you ever feel like Garrett Cole has come anywhere close to being the pitcher that he's supposed to be with them? I know the numbers are good. Like, okay, he's 9-2 with a 2.85 ERA, but it never feels like it feels like he can be had, and he doesn't, come up. He's
In
not
the big moments,
in the big moments. I mean, maybe
he crumbles.
right, and he doesn't, dominate the good teams, really. I mean, you had Herman, who threw a perfect game, but a lot of his other outings have been shellings. He's got an ERA of 4.32.
Herman should work on not hitting his wife,
Right.
not hitting other teams. Like,
yeah. Right. I mean, that's the last citizen you want to see maybe throw a perfect game for the Yankees, but
except for the guy they just released for battery as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the Yankees, it's typical New York, just beating your wife, I guess. That's what they're trying to bring to New York.
I don't know. I mean, they've had, that's obviously not a good look for them. And I think they did the right thing parting ways. The one guy that I will say has quietly had a ridiculous season for the Yankees, though, but you never hear about it, is Tommy Kahnle. He's actually 16 scoreless appearances. And I bring that up because the Yankee bullpen a few years back, remember they had their big 3. They had Betances, who was like the man,
Yes.
Andrew Miller, and they had Aroldis Chapman. Mm-hmm. And those teams were never that great when they had those 3 guys. And
I'll never forget that 1 or 1, 2, 3 punch. Like, that was a deadly punch.
Filthy. Mm-hmm. But now they're kind of piecing it together, and their bullpen's pretty good. I mean, look at a lot of the ERAs this year, and they've been pretty good. And they picked this guy up, Kahnle, who's 33, and the Dodgers didn't re-sign him, and he's been unhittable. But the Yankees, to me, not a championship caliber team. The Blue Jays, not a championship caliber team either. I don't trust their bullpen at all. To me, I mean, they kind of just strike me as like they've got a lot of the star power. They remind me of those Nationals teams before the Nationals won. Those teams that had a lot of big names, and it
Yeah.
always felt like they were fun to watch. They could sell tickets. They got the names right, Springer and Guerrero and Bichette. Um, and they have some good pitchers. Obviously, they have they signed traded for Barrios. Gosman's been great, but it doesn't feel like they have the other guys. And that really is the difference in being an average or above a playoff team to being really a championship team. And I'm not, unless they make a big splash or two, I don't see them being much better than the Rays, honestly. We were just talking about the Rays.
Well, talking about the Blue Jays, what the hell happened to what's his name, that pitcher?
Hyunjin Ryu.
No, no, no. The guy they sent down to the Florida
Oh,
complex.
Alec Manoah. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of his rookie cards because my dad said you need to buy his cards. I think he's going to be something special. And I did that his rookie year, and I bought a bunch. And last year, fantastic year. I was like, oh my god, we're going to have money from these cards, and just never seen anything like it.
I mean, he bounced back. He came back, had a decent start, but I mean, he got bombed when he went down to the rookie ball. I
He
mean,
no, he went down to the Florida Complex League and allowed
whatever it
11
was.
runs in
Yeah,
2 innings.
and then he actually came back and pitched well against. Yeah, granted the Tigers aren't that great, but still like a major league team, and so who knows? Maybe he just needed to get that all out of his system. Maybe it's a little bit of a sophomore slump because he had a great year last year. But you're right. I mean, and you look at their bullpen, and they got a lot of inflated ERAs there. And Romano came out of the All-Star game with a back injury, and I mean, he's good, but I mean, he's a guy that if you're talking like, oh my God, let's say the Blue Jays get to the ALCS or the World Series, they're playing a big team like the Astros or the Dodgers. I mean, that's just not a guy I would feel comfortable putting out there for a ninth or even an eighth and ninth inning save. I mean, so I don't know. I think the Jays are a good but not great team to me. I don't see that changing. But we should talk about the Orioles for a minute while we're on the AL East. I
Let's
mean,
talk about those O's.
yeah, I'll save the best for last. I mean, it's been a really terrific season. I mean, they have stayed. I believe that the whole year they have not been swept in a single series. I could be mistaken. I need to look. And I bring that up as sort of like, I think that says a lot about a team because it shows you can bounce back, you can adjust. There's a level of consistency. And I'm looking at it, I don't think that they've actually been swept in a single series. They go into the break with some momentum. They win their last 5 games because they were in a little bit of a skid there. They were like 4-8 or something over 12 games before that. And then they kind of found their footing. And I just want to see them trade for a starting pitcher. They have to get a starting pitcher. If this year's team is going to compete, I think the bullpen's really good. There's so much young offensive firepower. There's more coming. They've done it the right way. I love to see when a team can do it, really from scratch, from the doldrums of losing. They lost 115 games in 2019, 47 and 115. That's not far off from the almost record-setting 03 Tigers that went 43 and 119. And so
how many did they lose in 21? Did they lose 100 that year too?
they did, I believe. I'm going to check. I mean, they have been really, their seasons have been pretty spectacularly. So yeah, they lost 110. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was over 100. I didn't realize it was. So 110 just 2 years ago. Last year, they have a really surprise season, and it was, I think, 83 wins last year. So the turnaround's been great. The farm system is good again, and for so long it was just pathetically bad. But I think they need a potential ace. They need a guy that they can really say, hey, in a wild card game, or well, it's not a wild card game anymore, but in a short series, or a do or die game. I don't know that they have that guy on the roster right now. That starting pitcher, I mean, in their rotation.
Mm-hmm. I just looked at their schedule. Yeah, they have not been swept in the entire first half.
Nope. But again, you look at their, the rotation this year, and they've gotten some really nice performances from guys. I mean, Kyle Bradish has put up good numbers. Tyler Wells has the best ERA on the staff as far as the regular starters. I mean, there are like tantalizing moments from Dean Kramer. But again, if you just glanced at his numbers. He's got a 4.78 ERA.
Mhm.
Kyle Gibson was like their signing, right? The signing. Grayson and he's got a 4.6. Grayson Rodriguez, they were hoping that he could contribute. They sent him back down to the minors. He had a really rough go of it. Had an ERA of almost 7.5. So there's not that guy right now. They still remind me a lot of those previous Orioles playoff teams. They made it in 12, 14, and 16.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that in 2014, the Orioles, they won an American League Division Series. They swept the Detroit Tigers. The Orioles rotation was Chris Tillman, Bud Norris, and Wei-Yin Chen. The Tigers rotation was Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and David Price, I think, were the top three stars.
That was 14.
That was 14. So if you put that
They also had I think they had Porcello that year too.
Yeah, they had Porcello. I think they may have had Anibal Sanchez, or he may have been pitching out of the bullpen in that series because he was hurt. And I can't remember if Doug Fister was still there. I mean, those Tigers teams had some serious.
And they never won shit.
They never won a World Series. Their
bullpen
was terrible. I have a friend who's a Tigers fan who bemoans that. It was Jose Valverde or it was Joaquin Benoit. But the point is, the Orioles then, they said that was one of the biggest rotation mismatches that you can possibly imagine in a postseason series, and they won all 3 games. So they may be thinking along those lines, but I really think in today's day and age, they need a horse. And I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know if they want to give up capital, or certainly don't want to pay a lot of money. But I think that's the difference right now between them being maybe just a playoff team that they're fun to watch, and then being like, this could be a serious contender.
There are 2 big name aces out there right now that are possibly going to be traded. The Cubs are choosing not to extend Marcus Stroman.
Interesting.
That's one. And then Max Scherzer said he's also open to waiving his no trade clause on his contract, which would be a lot of money.
That is a lot. The Orioles want to take that on. Lucas Giolito, speaking of Chicago starting pitchers, is a name that I've been hearing about. Shane Bieber has been potentially mentioned. I mean, again, Cleveland's like, I think they're in first place at 500, or they're a half game up or half game up. So
we'll talk about that.
But I do think there are some options. I mean, is there going to be like a late 90s Randy Johnson out there? I don't think so. No. I don't even know if really that guy even exists at all in baseball anymore. But I think they need to go, and same thing with the Rays, right? We're talking about the Rays making that move. It's I think the Orioles need to do that.
Yeah. You guys definitely need a veteran.
Yeah.
In that rotation. Let's talk about the Central, because
God,
I am, because we're in last place, I'm like angry because
you'd be right. The Red Sox would be, let me see, 2.5 games up on the Guardians in the Central.
No, they're 500. Oh yeah. Wait, we're 4 over right now.
5 over.
5 over.
8 and 43. Yeah. So you'd have a 2.5 game lead on the Guardians.
I mean, it's bullshit. It's just bullshit. I think what they got to do is, this would never happen, but if a last place team finishes ahead of a first place team record wise, you just don't let that first place team go. I mean,
or if a team doesn't have at least a winning record, they shouldn't be allowed in the playoffs. I was all about this in the NFL too, because used to have 8 seasons. Like, if you're 8-8, if you can't even have 9 wins, have a 9-7 season, you do not deserve. You need to be rewarded for at least. You don't want to be rewarded for mediocrity. And right now, if the playoffs were to start today, Red Sox would be out, Yankees would be out, Guardians would be. Not only would the Guardians be in, they would host the wild card series. They would host the wild card series.
Yeah, they would.
Cleveland.
Yeah, no, they would host against Toronto?
Whoever the 6th seed is, I guess, right in the wild card right now would be the Astros, and Blue Jays are tied for the wild card. But yeah. So it's absurd. I think, we can obviously be honest that none of those Central teams are championship contenders. I mean, I think the Twins deserve a parade if they break their postseason losing streak. I think if they just get in, even if it's as like a wild card, even if it's just, hosting a charity wild card series, if they just win one of those 3 games, I think they need to have a parade in the streets of Minneapolis.
They did it for the Timberwolves when they won like a series.
Did they really?
I think they didn't do an actual parade, but I mean, Minnesota acted like they won the fucking finals. I was like, what are we
Sure.
doing here, guys? Like,
Yeah.
I get it's Minnesota sports. Minnesota sports is miserable. I would never want to be a Minnesota sports fan.
Oh, it's
The
awful.
Minnesota Wild are horrendous. The Minnesota Vikings are historically one of those like super cursed teams. The Twins obviously can't. They haven't won a playoff game since like 2004.
Yep, that's right. That was
And
the opening game, I think, of that series, right? I think they won game one and then lost
yeah,
grade, and then every year since it's been, you know, 03, 03, 03, you know, in the wild
yeah,
game they lost. But it's absurd. And but you look, you know, again, you look at the run differential, if you believe in that at all. They're the only team with a positive run differential. They're a
and it's
game
by
under
20
500,
runs.
and they have 27. Their net is plus 27 runs. And, you know, they do. I mean, look, Sonny Gray looked like a stud in the All Star game. They have a few good starting pitchers. They got a closer that throws like 102, 103. This is Duran. And then Carlos Correa has been just awful. I can see why he failed medicals with like 9 different teams before the season started. He's hitting like 220. To me, if I had to pick a winner, I mean, it's like, you know, it's the losers bracket is the Central. I would still say the Twins are the best team in that division. I mean, the Guardians are scrappy and, you know, they have some good young players, but I still get the sense that if it were, you know, comes down to pure talent and ability, I would still give the edge to the Twins. But of the question of can they do anything in the postseason? Again, I think if they win one single game in the postseason, that is a massive cause for celebration in the Twin Cities.
The Twins are 9-15 in one-run games, which is the worst in their division.
Mm.
In what I mean, even the Royals are 11-10 in one-run games. That's probably because they blow a lot of leads in the ninth, but still.
The few that they get, right?
Yeah,
You know, and Minnesota is also 8 games under 500 against winning teams, which obviously they don't get to play them in their own division. There aren't
that's
any
true.
that gets outside, you know, because they're doing okay actually in their division. You know, they're actually 18-12, which is what you should be when you play in that division. But you're right. There's nothing in there's no one in that division that just even deserves the opportunity to compete in the postseason right
And
now.
of their futures as well, like Detroit, maybe, or is their
Yeah,
farm
we're
system
looking
pretty
like what's the
decimated?
Central look like 5 years from now? I mean, could the Royals be what the Orioles are finally turning into with some of these young players? I could see the Royals. You know, I mean, look, they've done it once before with the core they had that won the World Series, and I think Detroit. I mean, you have so many guys that I don't know what's ever happened to Casey Mize. I don't know Spencer Turnbull. I think is out for the year. There's some young talent there that hasn't quite come together, and I think as bad as things look for the Tigers, the fact is they're only 5.5 games out. They're not awful. I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez getting hurt was big because when he came back, I don't think he's been very good, right? Since he came back.
That was a weird situation. He just kind of disappeared because that was around the time I think the Red Sox were playing the Tigers, and he just like like he didn't call in. Like he no showed for work basically, and I think they put him on IL. That was or maybe that was last year. Um, let's see here. Tigers feeling better. No, not that. Eduardo Rodriguez.
You know, and when while we're on the subject of, of kind of disappointing Detroit players, I mean, I was a big Javi Baez fan, and he's been a big disappointment, honestly, since he's been in
Yeah.
Detroit. Such an exciting play. He's such a freakishly athletic and gifted player. Like I don't know if anyone looks smoother, you know, making crazy plays in the field than Javier Baez, but he's hitting 225 with 6 homers, and that's on the heels of a year where he hit 238 with 17 homers. Like that's not the kind of production that you're paying that kind of money for. And I think it's kind of a shame because I think Detroit has, you know, some other young players, but nobody's really broken out yet. And you just look offensively, they're very, very challenged.
Mm-hmm.
Their leading home run hitter, Spencer Torkelson, another guy they were hoping for. He's hitting 228 with 12 homers. I mean, that's their big power source right now.
Yeah. Moving to the West, so the Rangers are To me, they're not, I guess, a super big surprise. I don't remember what our predictions were. I think I got rid of them, to be honest. But yeah, I think they were a little better than everyone thought they were going to be, and they're showing it. I mean, Nathan Eovaldi, these Red Sox pitchers that the Red Sox let go, the Red Sox are, I think they're regretting that very much. Nathan Eovaldi's had a great year to start for what he
Well,
was
yeah.
before. Because I root for him. I keep track of him. He has right now he's got a 2.83 ERA in 18 starts right now, and that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, who would have thought that would be the big free agent pitcher signing for the Rangers, right? They had some guy named DeGrom who was supposed to be pretty good, and
Yeah, that guy, he doesn't even show up for work anymore.
doesn't show up for work anymore. It's a shame because you look at the numbers he did put up in his brief, 6 games. I mean, he was pretty filthy. And it's a shame because I think a lot of us want to see the Astros get overtaken in the AL West. I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but it would be nice. And the Rangers look like a really good club early. They've hit a speed bump here before the All-Star break. They still have good starting pitching, but the back end of the rotation's leaking oil with Perez and Heaney. They're getting, another guy you look at, my God, how about Dane Dunning? I mean, he's the guy that
Yeah,
kind of stepped in and filled DeGrom's shoes. Not that you can ever do that, but he's 8-2 with a 2.84 ERA.
that's
And
filling his shoes. I'll say
that is
that.
doing a great job. John Gray has regained the form that, where he was really good with the Rockies. Eovaldi, love seeing it. Seems like a good dude. He's been through the ringer, right? He's Tommy John. He had multiple Tommy Johns, I
I
think.
think he's had 2.
He's had, yeah. I look, the
Yeah,
Rangers bullpen is a big problem. They got Aroldis Chapman, which is going to help. But I think if they're going to compete, I think the starting pitching's good. Sure, you could always use another. The offense is really good, right? You look through, they've got all the all-stars. They've got, I mentioned the Tigers leading home run hitters 12. Corey Seager has 12, and he missed like a month, right? And then they've got Garcia with 23 and Simeon with 11 and Jonah Heim with 12. Josh Young with 19. Ezekiel Duran's not even an everyday player. He's got 12. They've got a lot of offense. They've got good starting pitching. They need to figure out the back end of their bullpen. I think that is going to be the key for them if they're going to overtake Houston, if they're going to possibly make noise in the American League. I think the other parts are there. And I love Bruce Bochy. Just want to throw that out there. He's
yeah.
not a World Series winning manager by accident. The man knows baseball, and that was a great hiring by Chris Young and the Rangers front office.
The Athletics are hilarious.
Oh,
So,
they're playing a little better. Yeah.
Didn't they win like 5 in a row at one point?
They
had like
won
a
7 in a row.
7-game win streak.
They took 2 out of 3 from the Braves.
Yeah, that's
And the
true.
Braves are like 27-5 in their last 32 games. They lost 2 out of 3 in Oakland. So baseball is a funny game, but the A's are a funny team because they're terrible. And
They're 27 and a half games out right now.
Is that all? That's not too bad.
I said that as well. I said that's not all, but I didn't say that's not too bad. They're more games back than they have wins right now.
That's an impressive stat.
And they went on a 7-game win streak. So that's hard. That's hard to look at. Houston, they're not finding their footing like they have. They're still 9 over 500 and they're 2 games out. So it's not like they're terrible, but they're not the Astros of last or yesteryear.
Right. Well, and you think about it, at some point, even a great team like Houston, injuries are going to catch up, and they have had a lot of injuries. Altuve's back on the IL. Remember, he missed time. Pitching, that's the area where we're so used to seeing the Astros pitching dominate, at least these last couple years in particular. And Framber Valdez is a Cy Young front runner, absolutely. But Christian Javier has not pitched well. Hunter Brown started to struggle a little bit. No Urquidy. They may get him back. McCullers is done for the year. Luis Garcia is done for the year. These are good players. They have a good bullpen, a really good bullpen, actually. Yeah. But Yordan Alvarez has been hurt. And that man, and I will say this about Alvarez, because I don't like the Astros, but nothing personal against Alvarez. He is a frightening player. Like I'm sure he's a great guy, and I've never heard anything bad about him. But my God, you look at him, and he's like terrifying. if you're a pitcher,
Yeah.
he just has that Ortiz like, right?
Exactly. That's what I was about to say,
Yeah,
Ortiz.
yeah. I mean, and it almost just like more jacked. I mean, not that Ortiz wasn't big, but
Well, Ortiz, let's not beat around the bush here. David Ortiz was fat.
he was fat,
He
right?
was a big boy. I mean, he
Alvarez
was a
is
hoss. He's what we call a hoss. He's country like not obviously he's not from the country, but he's country strong.
right, right, and right, and another guy that's kind of like, but Alvarez is kind of a silent assassin. So is Kyle
Yeah.
Tucker, because you look at him and he looks kind of just like he's got like this deadpan look. But these guys, they have some really good hitters. But when you lose an Altuve, when you lose an Alvarez in this case, and Bregman has not been himself, he's hitting 240 with 12 homers at the break.
I despise him too. I'm happy to see
Yeah,
that.
I can understand that. And Abreu got off to a really rough start. Even his numbers are not very good. The guy that's actually been kind of like their spark plug all year is Mauricio Dubon. And of all guys to kind of steer the ship a little bit, interesting that it's the guy that basically filled in for Altuve. Even Jeremy Pena's numbers have been down a little bit. But I would say that, and Michael Brantley, let's not forget Michael Brantley's been out. I would say if they get healthy, I think the Rangers are gonna have very little margin for error. And I think the lead is only 2 games right now. It was as high as 5, and the Astros took 3 out of 4 in Texas the weekend before the All-Star break, the weekend before the last weekend, and they'll play 6 more times. But I think if Houston gets healthy, they're still the team to beat. Unless the Rangers can really turn it up. The team, I mean, we have to talk about the Angels, though. And I don't want to forget Seattle. They're playing
this is another standard Angels season to me.
Well, it's a standard Angels season, and now you start to kind of nervously await where Ohtani might end up, whether it's this year via trade or free agency, certainly coming up.
They did say that it's most likely not going to happen this year, or this deadline at least. But I could definitely see in the off season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is the Angels should trade him. I mean, I pray to whoever's listening up there that he doesn't end up in LA. I mean, with the Dodgers, he's already in LA. But I really don't want to see him go to the Yankees, obviously. But there's something about the Dodgers getting him that would just gnaw away at me.
They have everybody.
Their fans love to toot. We develop our own guys. And how many times have they re-signed Clayton Kershaw as a free agent? Okay, yeah, you drafted him, and sure, a lot of guys drafted guys, but they can't afford to keep them. And I think it's insane. And can you imagine? Oh my God, a lineup of top 4 guys are Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and then Shohei Ohtani.
Freddie Freeman literally got tricked into signing with LA. Do you know that story?
Well, I met Alex Anthopoulos. I tried to get it out of him recently. I was sitting across from him at a restaurant. He wouldn't tell me anything about. Very nice guy, by the way, and doing a hell of a job with the Braves. But I didn't get anything, so I'm curious what you're taking.
So his agent, I don't know. I don't know.
Right?
I don't know the specific details, but his agent basically lied about what the Braves offered.
Right.
Freddie Freeman.
Right.
So he was like, I would have gone back for that, but it's too late now. I'm already stuck in, I'm in LA. So he literally had to be tricked to go play in LA.
It's LA, man.
Just a miserable city too.
I've heard miserable city. I live there. It's a miserable stadium experience. It's a you sit in traffic. You get there by the 4th inning, which now would be like the 7th inning, the way the games go. My uncle, he lives there. He goes to some Dodger games, and he likes the Dodgers. But even so, he'll even be the first to say they really don't care about the fans. It's really a bad. And LA is not. I mean, it's a lot of people. So in that sense, it's a sports fan. But that would be. I pray that doesn't happen. I wish that the commissioner would step in the way that David Stern did. I think he tried to veto when Chris Paul was going to go to the Lakers, and they were like, no, this is too much. They have Shaq, they have Kobe. And so I hope they don't. But you know what? At least if the Dodgers had to trade for him, the Angels could ask for a serious haul. And the Dodgers do have.
They would.
By their own luck. I don't know how they you want, guys, but sorry, go ahead.
You can the Angels can ask for literally anything.
Yeah.
And they would get it. I mean, it's Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and we don't know how many years he's going to be quite doing it at this level and doing both. But there's a lot of prospects the Dodgers have. I mean, is it Bobby Miller and Emmett Sheehan are pitching great. They've got this kid Diego Cartea. They've got Miguel Vargas obviously struggling. They sent him down, but we'll come back to the Dodgers when we get to the NOS. But I just think the Angels have to make this move. It's got to be gut wrenching. They want to still be able to sell tickets while they can, but Trout's out for the year now or close to it. They're pitching. I mean, speaking of Dodgers, they tried to get Tyler Anderson. He's been terrible. Who could have seen that coming, right? The bullpen. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries. In fairness, they were playing well up until like a couple weeks ago. Now they're behind Seattle. I don't want to forget Seattle because that's a team that you never know with Seattle what they did last year. But I think the Angels. I don't know. It's gut wrenching, and I understand all the arguments to not trade him, but you got to trade him, right? You got to get something for it because if you really, if I think it was John Smoltz during the All-Star game said, if they could have re-signed him already, I mean, wouldn't they've already have they not already tried to do it? Have they not just realized like, hey, we have the first shot at keeping this guy? Couldn't we just say like right now we'll write you a check for $600 million for the next 10 years? Just please don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. So that's all there is to say. I mean, honestly, I look at the Angels and it's almost like they've had these guys for so long, right? I mean, they've had Trout at least, best player in baseball, and now you have Shohei, and there's no sign of improvement. It should cross, I guess, Angels fans' minds of saying, tear it down. Like it's heartbreaking to trade like your best player in franchise history. Trust me, I know. I went through it. But you almost say trade Trout for prospects, trade Shohei for prospects at the deadline, and just tear the rest down. Fucking find a way to get rid of Anthony Rendon. Like, just get rid of it all. Just be the Orioles for 3 years and just lose 150 fucking games if they have to. But it's just it's been like this ever since Trout came up. I mean, it's just you're in purgatory as well. Like you're not
That's
bad, but you're
exactly
not good.
Yeah.
You're in purgatory.
Miami Dolphins syndrome, right? Every year, just good enough. And right, you're right. And I think that's why when I said this earlier about the Orioles, and I'm obviously biased towards the Orioles, but other teams have done it. The Cubs, the Royals, I mean, even the Astros. You hate on them for all you want, and certainly the cheating stuff, that's bad. But the way they did it as far as building up the team, they did it the right way. And so we were just talking about the Dodgers. They'll never do it the right way. The Yankees, they'll never win with the integrity. They'll say we home grow our guys because we have Aaron Judge. We can cite one or two examples while building out a team of all these other guys. Because in a sense, they're afraid to do the right thing, right? It almost feels like they're like so terrified to go down that road and do, because they can just stay relevant. They have the funds, but I think you're right for the Angels. I mean, this is when can you truly rebuild as well as you can now? And you could get 6 or 7 quality players for one. Even if no one's nearly as good as Ohtani, you could still get a real haul. So if it were up to me, I'd trade him. I just wouldn't do it. Trade him to the Dodgers. That should just be illegal. Yeah.
And then Seattle, I don't know too. I mean, Seattle's just off my radar. I just know of Julio. I know they gave Julio Rodriguez that big contract for almost doing nothing.
Making the All-Star game.
Yeah. Well, what's their deal, I guess? Because I remember last year I had a lot of high hopes for them. And
well, their deal is they're like an overachieving team, right? Last year they did it with a pretty, I think, I don't know if it was a negative run differential or it was very low. I mean, I think it was just the fact that they kind of scrapped and clawed the whole season. And actually, I'm looking at the team last year. So they won 90 games last year, but they had a pretty modest run differential.
Plus 67.
Yeah, that's pretty good actually, I guess, but not like 100 or 200 you'd expect. And this year they're same thing, right? They're decent run differential. They're playing better. They've got some really good starters. I mean, you look at their top 3 in the rotation right now, and Logan Gilbert has been on a serious role. George Kirby was an all-star deservedly. And I think Luis Castillo was as well. It's interesting with those 3 starters because it kind of like nobody in there, outside of Seattle really is going to know anything about these guys, but kind of an intriguing team when you think about those three pitchers, and can they get more from their offense? That's the question. You look at their averages, and it looks like the top batting average among starters is Ty France. He's hitting 261. So I
I
think,
saw that's shockingly low.
yeah, Kelnick had a great start, but he sort of regressed to where he was like a year ago when they sent him down. So yeah, I mean, Julio, he can hit some homers, and Teoscar Hernandez who's, I mean, he's an okay player. He's leading the team with 15. They're kind of balanced, but they seem to be, their offense has a little bit of that all or nothing kind of feel, and I think that's what kind of keeps them from being like a really true contending team versus kind of the middling team they are right now.
Yeah, I mean their OPS is their max OPS is 944. That's from a guy with 83 at bats. The next one is 856, and that's from a guy with 97. After that, I mean, their highest is 757 from JP Crawford, who's
Right.
their everyday shortstop. I mean, they're not, yeah, their OPS is scary low. And especially with a team where I was looking at their pitching stats, at least, that's a pretty damn good top three to have there, and you're just kind of wasting it.
Right.
All right. So NL East. Oh my God, I want to talk about the Mets first.
Oh God.
I'm a big fan of a guy named Frank the Tank. He works for Barstool, and he's a massive Mets fan who just hates the Mets. He just hates them. Last year, he said they were going to collapse because it's like 2007, I think, was when the Mets collapsed that last time, and Frank was right. I mean, he was. They did, I guess, not a collapse in the regular season, but they got shell shocked in the playoffs. And then this year is just, oh my God. I find myself rooting for the Mets, and it's just horrible. You're paying, oh, you just cut out for a second, but you're paying $100 million or like $500 million for them. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I can't believe that they're struggling the way that they are. I mean, even with the injuries and such. I mean, it's not like, I mean, if you told me like, oh, Edwin Diaz got hurt and the bullpen's been a mess, I would. I mean, the bullpen kind of has been a mess, but the back end, right? Robertson's been pretty good. I mean, he's an amazing story. I love the fact that he's pitching and still pitching well. He's the last, well, him and Mark Melanson, technically the last remaining 2009 Yankees.
Oh my
He threw
God.
that out there at some point, but they're just, yeah, it's just such an underperforming team in so many ways. I mean, Lindor's starting to heat up a little bit, but my God, like he's have to, you know, he just never has felt like he's delivered on what the promise that he had, you know, coming in. Pete Alonso's hitting 211, so we can sit here and marvel that he has 26 homers. He's hitting 211.
He also just takes the home run derby way too seriously.
He
Dude,
does.
chill out. This is not your World Series. The World Series is your World Series.
Right. Right. And again, like when Max Scherzer's ERA is 4.31, you know, Verlander missed time. I mean, Carlos Carrasco, great story. He's a cancer survivor, and it's great to see him pitching, but he's struggling. I mean, right. David Peterson, 6.46. They're just, you know, they need, like, their stars aren't even playing like stars, which is where it starts. And then when you have the other guys underperforming, obviously the bullpen's been a sore spot. Again, not Robertson. I mean, right? It's been the other guys that have all struggled, have inflated ERAs, and they've blown a lot of games. But hard to believe they won 101 games last year.
Yeah. This is one of the biggest swings I've seen. Just also talent wise, like not even record. They're 42 and 48. I guess that's not god awful, you know. But I mean, they're just like ugly to watch. Like you don't want to watch them. You know, you never want to turn your game on and watch the Mets because they're just disappointing right now, and it's just
Sad.
not even fun.
Yeah.
They're 7 games out of San Francisco right now for the third wild card spot. So
They're 18 and a half games out of first place in
yeah,
the division. I mean, Atlanta's on a ridiculous run right now. And
yeah, I
it's not
would say maybe. I mean, the wild card. I guess you're 7 out at this point. That's not outrageous. You know, it's not an outrageous thing to say they could go on a run and play like they did last year and find their way in because Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't
I think the
say
Mets
I'm
need to play on turf. They're 6-1 on turf, whatever that means. I don't even know what's considered turf. I guess
just
Dakota
probably
turf.
like the Trop, um, Rogers Center,
Right, right.
just any of the indoor stadiums.
The Mets
That's
found their they
pretty much
found
it.
found their cure. I mean, the rest of the division's interesting. Like Atlanta, I mean, I almost feel like we don't even have to talk too much about Atlanta because they're doing what we
Yeah.
expect. I mean, they look if it came down to pure talent and on paper, and if we were going just by the way things are going now, Atlanta is the best team in baseball. And I don't want to say it's not close, but I mean, I think it's pretty.
It's not close with Tampa.
It's not close with Tampa. They're much better than Tampa. I mean, I think
Yeah.
they're much better than most teams. I think the Dodgers maybe are pretty good. Obviously, I mean, look, the Marlins are having a great year. I love seeing them do well. The only two
Mhm.
times they've made a legitimate postseason, I know they got there in 2020, but the two times they made a legit postseason, they've won the World Series. They've never won a division title in their history, but they have a ton of exciting talent. I mean, how fun is Luis Arias? I thought for a second he might hit 400, then I remembered nobody besides Ted Williams is ever going to do that again. I mean, Ted Williams being the last, I'm saying no one's going to do it again. The Phillies, that's a team to keep your eye on. They're playing well. They're starting. Remember last year they got off to a bad start, just like this year, and they're playing well. They had a 13 game road winning streak until they lost the series in Miami. Should be an interesting second half. I mean, if the Mets play better, it kind of makes that division more fun because you've got these three teams that are in it, not so much in it in like a division race because Atlanta's got an 8.5 game lead, but they're all
Yeah.
in a postseason chase, right? And it's exciting for Miami. I'm happy for them. Jeter leaves. See what happens when you get rid of Yankee guys.
Yankees, yeah, they ruin everything.
Yeah, yes. Stanton's gone. Jeter's gone.
When
But
hey, when Girardi got fired last year, the
the
Phillies
Phillies,
took
sure.
off.
And there you go. You're right.
Then they went to the World Series.
Rob Thompson, right? And the Phillies, and I'll say hats off to Craig Kimbrell because he looked real bad last year in LA. He looked real bad in the beginning, even worse this year in Philly. He's really turned it around. I don't know that he's ever going to be that Craig Kimbrell again, but it changes the complexion of things for the Phillies to have a bona fide closer that they can trust. Because last year in the postseason, I mean, they really didn't have like that dominant closer, right? I mean, their bullpen was kind of a sore spot for a lot of the year,
Yeah.
and Alvarado kind of struggled, in the postseason. And the Corey Knebel was the guy that actually led the team in saves last year, and he was hurt like halfway through the year. So for them to have a back end guy, I think they just need a couple of their starters to step up. I mean, Wheeler hasn't quite been what he was. I mean, his ERA is at 4. Taijuan Walker's ERA is at 4. In fact, the best ERA of the starters right now is Ranger Suarez. He's only
Mhm.
made 11 starts. So I think that'll be the key for the Phillies. But I'm rooting for the Marlins, man. I hope they do. I'm not rooting for Marlins man. I'm rooting for the Marlins, man, because I'd love to see these young, hungry teams that take a step. I mean, those are the teams you root for, right? You root against the Dodgers 100%. You root for the Marlins 100%.
Yeah. Especially, I want to see the teal back in the playoffs.
I just want to see them be the Florida Marlins again. I don't
Yeah.
like this Miami Marlins thing. It's been
They've been horrendous as the Miami Marlins
yeah, even
the
worse.
entire time. They went like Miami Vice, and then it just ruined everything. They built
Yeah.
that stupid statue.
But I mean, hey, if they get into the playoffs, they've got some exciting players. Hey, they got Jorge Soler. He was a World Series MVP 2 years ago. He's got 23 homers. They've got some really exciting young pitchers. They called up this kid, Yuri Perez, has put up great numbers. Um, Braxton Garrett's been a surprise. Jesus Luzardo. I mean, the guy what's amazing is if I told you the Marlins would be 14 games over 500 at the All-Star break, and Sandy Alcantara, Cy Young winner last year, would be 3-7 with a 4.72 ERA, you'd have said, "Oh my God, you're crazy." So that's what's impressive. I mean, if Alcantara can start to look like himself, and the other guys keep doing what they're doing, the Marlins could be a very interesting team. We know what they do when they get into regular postseasons, right? They're 2 for
Yeah.
2. So
All right, let's move to the Central. This Central isn't as bad as the American League Central. It's
got
not
better.
great. I mean, it's been getting better because the Reds have just been
Sure.
tearing. I mean, Ellie De La Cruz I've said this before that I am extremely, extremely jealous of Cincinnati sports fans right now
Mm.
because you have Ellie De La Cruz and this young, fun team. And if they make like if they make like a September push for the postseason, then they make it. And then you got Joe Burrow coming in. I mean, this is a summer to remember for Reds fans. I think if I would love to be 10 years old in Cincinnati right now because I would think back on this when I'm
Yeah, this is
21.
the impression they're making on you now.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking back to from when I'm 21, thinking back to those times, I would never forget that. I would, yeah, that would be a fantastic life to live right now.
Oh, they're so exciting right now. I mean, obviously, what Ellie De La Cruz is doing in a short. He's only played 30 games. Feels like he's been
Yeah.
around 30 years. They've got a lot of exciting players offensively. I had a chance to watch him a couple of games when they were here in DC, and right now it's kind of a similar situation to the Orioles. Their bullpen's been doing a really good job. They've got a lot of good, young, exciting hitters. The starting pitching, if this team is really going to make a push in the postseason, they've got to find someone. I mean, Andrew Abbott was great. He had a rough start in his last start, but he's only made 7 starts in the big leagues, right? They're counting on guys like Luke Weaver, who has a 7 ERA. Obviously, their best pitcher is injured. Hunter Green is out probably into August. Gave him a big extension, electric young arm, but with the rotation they have now, Nick Lodolo is out, and he wasn't obviously pitching well before he was hurt. They desperately need at least one, if not 2 starters. You look at their rotation right now: Graham Ashcraft, Luke Weaver, Ben Lively, Brandon Williamson, Andrew Abbott. I mean, that can't,
They
they
can't
can't.
get you anywhere.
That can maybe get you the Central, maybe, but Milwaukee is a tough team to count out. They've been so streaky this year. I mean, Milwaukee was swept at home by the A's. Never forget that. I think that automatically eliminates you from true World Series contention. But again, they have a pretty good roster. They have some good young players. They have, obviously, if you just compare Milwaukee's rotation to Cincinnati's, it's like a landslide with Corbin Burns and Freddie Peralta and Wade Miley, former Oriole and Red Sox pitcher.
Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a
My
long
God,
time.
Wade Miley, was he an all-star? Am I making that up? I mean, he was 6-2 with a 3.06 ERA in the first half. Maybe not an all-star, but he's been
He's
really
got
good.
to be he's in his late 30s.
36.
Yeah, that sounds about right then.
And
I
he's
think
not
I haven't heard that name since 2014.
he doesn't rack up a lot of Ks, but man, the guy knows how to get major league hitters out. And he's
Yeah.
been doing it at a pretty solid level for a while now. And they've got a really good closer. I like Devin Williams. Their bullpen has been the back end's been good. It's just, again, like there's nobody. I mean, the Reds are the team we root for, and they're the team that's like so exciting because they've got this, De La Cruz, and they've had this great stretch of baseball. But they're the team I would probably want to see because I feel like of all the Central teams, they could probably do the most damage. Although there was a stretch of the season when I was really high on the Cubs. I do remember that I picked them to win the division before the year.
That's true. Yeah.
I did say that one I do remember. And at times this year, the Cubs have looked like really strong. And they have,
They're
again,
streaky too.
they are. They're the only team with a positive run differential in that division. They're plus 26, but they're still 5 games under. And I'm just curious what they're going to do with Marcus Stroman. Are they going to go and be sellers at the deadline? I've heard Cody Bellinger's name mentioned maybe as a trade chip. I mean,
well, we thought that they were rebuilding. I think coming into the offseason, we were like, all right, well, the Cubs are going to go through a major rebuilding phase, and they decided to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, again, it was like, what the hell are you guys doing? And then I think it almost showed to pay off. Like we were like, okay, this Cubs team's actually pretty good. Like they might win a division this year, and they've just been back and forth.
Yeah, their bullpen really struggled early in the season. They've turned it around a bit, but that they blew a lot of games. Drew Smiley's pitched pretty well at times. He had a perfect game and through 7 innings against the Dodgers earlier this year. Stroman's numbers are good, although Justin Steele, a deserving All-Star, and Jameson Taillon, I think he hit the Yankees for 8 innings.
He's a former Yankee.
He's a former Yankee, so that was nice. Kyle Hendricks has bounced back here. So it's interesting. I look at the Cubs roster, and I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they hung around, decided to not be sellers, and made a run at this thing. I mean, they're only what are they, 7 games out? I mean,
Yeah.
there's no one. I mean, Cincinnati and Milwaukee are certainly could be prone to have, you know, letdowns here in the second half. I don't think the Cubs are completely out of it. Obviously, they could go and be sellers, but they're an intriguing team because again, the positive run differential, they've got some talent, but they're just happy they're ahead of the Cardinals, right? Look at the miserable Cardinals right now, behind
Oh
even
my
Pirates.
goodness. So I'm looking at their one run. They are so the Cubs are 9-12 in one run games. I kind of liken them to the Minnesota Twins of
Yeah,
that Central Division. And then the Cardinals are 9-19 in one run games. Just horrendous. I mean, they're horrendous. Actually, they play well during the day, which is hilarious. They're 19-16 during the day.
well, thank God for that.
And they're 19-36 at night, which is I don't know how you split it like that, but congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals. Well, you talk about teams in limbo that have just not, that have just never said we're going to go into the full rebuild. But I think I was always, I was always, and I say always, like the last 4 or 5 years, I have not been the least bit sold on the Cardinals. I felt that they vastly overachieved to get to the postseasons that they did. 2019 was a perfect example. They like destroyed the Braves in Game 5, and then rightfully got swept out by the Nats in the NLCS, and have never really recovered. But they would still make the postseason. They would have just enough of a good enough roster to get in, but never truly be that team. I think they need to go into more of a full sweeping change mode.
yeah.
Pittsburgh is an interesting team. They played really well early in the year. They're kind of back to being the Pirates, but they're not a complete pushover. I don't think they're going to make a run being 8.5 out, but I don't know. Like they're still like, you still got to be pleased if you're a Pirates fan. I think the fact that they still have a breath of life, in them at the All-Star break is probably an achievement.
Yeah. All right. In the West,
Oh,
Arizona.
what a division it's been. Actually, it's
Yeah,
surprising. I mean, because who would have thought the San Diego Padres would be
I
eight and
would
a half
have.
games out? I mean, yeah, I knew they weren't. I knew they were prone for a step back. I just didn't think it was this big of a step back. I mean,
I just despise them. I
sure.
think I despise Fernando Tatis too. I kind of always have. Like he got that contract so early, and I was like, what do you guys see in this guy? I was like, I mean, yeah, he makes some web gems. And good lord, I mean the steroids, whatever steroid, he wasn't even using anything that would have helped him. But you
Right.
know,
And obviously with Machado being off the Orioles now, I can say I'm not particularly a fan of him. And they're a very cocky group, and again, they're just a classic team of like they have these stars who are underperforming, and then to boot, their quote depth guys aren't doing very good. I mean, yeah, they
yeah,
got rid of Nelson Cruz, and I really thought that was gonna be I thought that would be a nice signing. He's like 42 years old, and they got
he
rid of
was all right last year.
yeah, I mean, he was hitting 245 with 5 homers. It's not like he was hitting 160. I mean, Matt Carpenter's hitting 173, which not surprising. I mean, they got Gary Sanchez. I mean, he's hitting 198, but at least he's hit 7 homers. But Austin Nola's hitting 143. Jake Cronenworth's hitting 217. And Ha-Seong Kim's doing all right, or he's got 10 homers. And Bogarts speaking of Red Sox, right? He's cooled off a lot. He got off to a real hot start. He's hitting 253 with 10 homers.
Yeah,
It just Trent Grisham, like I don't think he could hit a left-handed pitcher if he was, lobbing the ball in there. This guy really at times looks lost. So the Padres, like they've had a few injuries, but for the most part, like this is them. They're just not that good. But I really like what Arizona's doing. I love that they're giving the Dodgers a fight. They're actually 5-3 against LA. They played them early in the year, 2 series, but man, they're an exciting team, and it's such a fun team to watch, honestly, with, Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte. They've got some pop in their lineup, guys like Christian Walker, and they've got obviously Zach Gallen, and if Merrill Kelly gets healthy, that there's another, stud arm that they could count on. They're an exciting team. You think they can give the Dodgers a run, or maybe the Giants for that matter?
Um, to be honest, I haven't paid too much attention to the West. Um, yeah, I just I don't know. The West divisions is harder for me to keep track of. It's just they're at night and
Sure.
just not really paying too much attention. I know one thing. They got to bring that though. I love their serpents, or it's those like cream colored
Oh yeah.
uniforms. I love those. Those are gorgeous. And I mean, we got to get that old Arizona Diamondbacks uniform back as well, like the green and blue.
Yep.
That was fantastic. So I guess that's my only thoughts on the West for this one, just because I guess I don't have too much knowledge on,
Yeah.
especially the National League West.
Well, the Diamondbacks, I mean, the bullpen, it's the same story as Texas. I think the starting rotation's been great. They've blown so many games late. They don't really have a true closer. I mean, Andrew Chafin is the leader in saves with 8. And his numbers are good, but man, you're not putting Andrew Chafin in there in Game 7 of the World Series to close it out. Probably not putting Scott Mago, I don't know how you pronounce it, or certainly Miguel Castro. I can attest to that. He's a former Oriole. They need help in the bullpen. They're an exciting team. You saw Lourdes Gurriel almost hit a home run in the All-Star game. Corbin Carroll's fantastic. I love Ketel Marte. Geraldo Perdomo made the All-Star team. So they're an exciting team. But here's the thing. The Dodgers are still really good. And the Dodgers could potentially add Ohtani. They could add a Giolito. I mean, it's unfair because with all their injuries, they still have so much depth. Again, I mean, you have that much money to spend. You knew Kershaw would be on the IL for a little bit, but they've still got Tony Gonsolin, Julio Urias. Dustin May's out for the year, and the bullpen's been a little shaky. But again, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, JD Martinez. Is that killing you to see
JD Martinez is another guy that I know we shouldn't have gotten rid of.
Oh, and
He's
when I
playing
saw him go to
fantastic.
LA, I said, "Oh my God, that's kind of like 2018 all over again." When people kind of forgot about him, the Red Sox, well, they didn't forget about him, but because he coming off a monster year. But it was kind of like he waited till late in spring training, I think, and he finally signed like around President's Day, and
Yeah.
he ended up having a monster season, and they won the World Series. And he's having not a monster season, but he's putting up pretty darn good numbers. And it's kind of unfair because you almost feel like, I mean, who else who's going to pay for him? And Jason Hayward's having a nice year, which is surprising.
Jason Hayward.
Jason Hayward, for real.
I can't believe he's even still in the league after how he played in
Chicago.
Well, Chicago or did he play? He was all right. He was good in St. Louis, right?
Yeah, for a year. I want to point this out about the Dodgers. It's just yet reason number 872 to hate them. When you look at a lot of their star guys, you look at Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, JD Martinez. I want to throw Trey Turner and Max Scherzer in there. I know they're not on the team now. They were on the team either last year in Turner's case or the year before in Scherzer's case. These are all guys that beat the Dodgers on the way to winning a World Series for their team, which goes into the if you can't beat them, buy them, right? Freddie Freeman beat him with the Braves in 2021. Betts and Martinez beat him in 2018 in the World Series. Hayward beat him in the NLCS with the Cubs in 2016. Turner and Scherzer beat him in the 2019 postseason with the Nats. It kind of almost smacks of like desperation, like, oh, shucks, gee, well, we have money. Let's just get them so they can't beat us again, right? It's just funny how it just keeps ending up as these guys go to LA, right? And then they find it, they find a rebirth. So, but they're still probably the team to beat. The Giants are good, but pitching, but just remember the Giants won 107 games 2 years ago with smoke and mirrors. It was
and then they lost like what, 80 something?
What's that? Yeah.
They lost like 80, 90, whatever. I mean, that must be that's got to be the biggest roller coaster. And then now they're kind of, I mean, they're not bad. They're definitely not bad.
But that season was one of the most fun and magical seasons you will ever see. That team won 107 games, and it was a new hero every night. Now, we got a little bit of that this year. They got kind of an interesting mix of guys, and guys like Jock Peterson and Michael Conforto and J.D. Davis, and they don't have those that quite that magic. But I love Logan Webb. I'm very happy to see former Oriole Alex Cobb having an all-star year.
He's got to be what, 38,
He's
39,
he's 35, yeah, and
35?
they've
Wow, he's
got
young then.
they've got the Rogers twins at 32 years old in the bullpen. They got a stud young closer in Camilo
They
Dovalde.
got Sean Manea,
They
which
do
he's
Sharman,
sucking.
who once no hit the Red Sox in
Yeah.
2018. So they're an exciting. I don't see them winning the division. I think Arizona's still the best competition, but I hope it's anybody but the Dodgers. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. Oh boy. And then the Colorado Rockies. I mean,
Nothing to say
I,
about
I'm going. I'm going to Colorado either in September or October, so I'm going to catch a Rockies game. But that's right. I just keep my eye on them. Just
my
I want to know
recommendation.
their schedule.
So there's a neighborhood in DC called Calorama, and my DC team here is called the Calorama Rockies. We've got the pinstripes. We're sleeveless. We wear like the purple undershirts. It's Rockies are great for branding. They're a fun team.
It's a gorgeous color.
Great
Just
color, great stadium. If you have a chance, I hope you get to go to a game at Coors Field. It's a beautiful, beautiful park.
yeah.
And hey, one thing we'll say about the Rockies, they have this year's All-Star Game MVP, Elias Diaz. So congrats to him. That was cool. But they've so many guys out right now, and they never have pitching. It seems like so.
Yeah.
It's a
You know what
shame.
they should change about the All-Star game is you got to get rid of the
The one. Yeah.
requiring a player from each team. I know, yeah, I mean it worked out, but it's stupid. It's
not an all-star if you're just an active charity like Michael Lorenz. I hate to pinpoint Lorenzen and Booker again, but a Rooker, I'm sorry. But I mean, kind of, Rooker had a great start to the year, but I agree with you. Be an interesting second half. Interesting second half. You want to throw a quick World Series prediction in there? We know we're going to be wrong. Might as well make one.
Oh my goodness. Let me think here. I'm going to go. I'll never go Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I love it when Texas is good. It makes me think about those teams 2011, 2012,
2010, 11, yeah.
Or 10 and 11. I mean, I have so many. I remember I was just talking with my mom about this. We were talking about a vacation we took. I think it was 2011. And I remember lying down on the couch. All the adults went out that night, and it was just us kids. And I was sleeping on the couch, and I had the World Series game on. I just remember sitting down and watching it. And then when the adults came back home, I was acting like I was asleep so nobody would bother me. And I just kept watching the game. So that's always a fond memory about Texas.
I don't know if that was the classic Game 6. That was one of the best games I ever watched.
I don't think it was. I think Lincecum was pitching that night.
Oh, that would have been 2010. Giants played the Rangers in 2010.
Yeah, 2010 then.
Well, 2011.
Yeah, it had to be 2010. Yeah.
The 2011 was that classic Worlds. And look, the Rangers were one strike away, I think, on 3 different pitches in two different at bats in that game. And it sounds like you're leaning Texas. That was actually the team.
I'm going Texas. I love seeing those colors in too. It's something about the Rangers jerseys. They have gorgeous jerseys. I think they're actually very underrated. It's simple, but I love it.
So you're going Texas in the AL, and who's your NL team?
Yeah.
And who's the winner?
I want to pick the Reds so bad, but I just can't. I can't in good conscience. I'm to be a weird World Series. Miami's going to make a run.
I love it.
We're going to see Texas and Miami in the ugliest World Series. I mean, that's just an ugly sounding World Series.
Indoor stadiums, Dallas and Miami, right? They almost I think what was I going to say, that they almost played this year in the in NHL, right? It would have almost been Florida and Dallas had the Stars won. Yeah, and
they could have been in the NBA too. But it was possible. Dallas.
It was possible. And the Heat and the Mavericks have played a couple times in the finals, but
that's true.
I like it. I was going to go I'm glad you didn't say the exact 2 teams I was thinking. I would love to pick the Orioles, obviously. I would never pick the Rays. I would never pick a team from the Central. I normally just pick out of spite because I'm like, well, at least if I'm right, at least I can say I'm right if I have to put up with seeing this World Series, and I'll be thrilled to be wrong. If I pick the Astros and the Dodgers, I'll be like, please let me be wrong. But at least if it happens, I'll be right. It's always been kind of the way I've approached, like picking or even betting on sports. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to be a little sentimental. I'm gonna go Texas in the AL. I'm gonna go Atlanta because I think I would love to see like the double dose of the randomness, but I think we'll kind of get one. But Atlanta's tough, man. They're really good, and I do like the Marlins pick because like they're one of those young teams that if they get in, and they've been dominated all year by Atlanta. Like I know I say all year, it's like 7 games, but I think they're like 1-6 or maybe 1-9. I don't even know what it is, but
Which that's usually I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I
yeah, but
feel
it
like
seems the
when
team that dominates in the regular season, it flips in the yeah. Well, the year I mentioned the Orioles and Tigers earlier, 2014, the Orioles were I think 1-5 against the Tigers in that regular season.
I think
So
last year the Mets played the Braves pretty well in the regular season.
yeah, they didn't face off in the postseason, but I will
Well,
say
who'd the Mets play in the postseason last
Padres,
year?
Padres.
Oh, San
But the
Diego.
Mets in 2015 is a good example. The Mets and the Cubs played in the NLCS in 2015. In the regular season that year, the Cubs beat the Mets 7 times, all 7 times. They were 7-0 against the
Wow.
Mets in the regular season. Guess what happened when they met in the NLCS? The
They
Mets
got
won.
swept.
The Mets won all 4 games. So
Yeah.
there's something weird about that. Is it just because the pitching doesn't line up when the games happen in the regular season, or is it just the law of averages catch up? I don't know. Texas did play Atlanta. Oh, everyone plays everybody. That's another gripe I have. We'll do that.
Oh, yeah. Get that shit out of here.
Every World Series from here on out will be a rematch of the regular season. We'll be like, oh well, it used to be like a big deal. ALNL first time. Okay, then we get interleague play, and there's a few games, and maybe it works out. But now everyone plays everyone. So Atlanta, Texas will be like, oh yeah, they already played, and Atlanta won 2 out of 3 in Texas in like May or whatever it was. And I don't know, it just takes away from it. It's
And plus, you're not playing your division as much too,
right,
which
right. Two
personally
series, home and
in
road.
baseball you got to play them more. That's insane.
And I'm fine with it not being maybe 19 games, but I think if you're going to do that, just maybe have a home and home with one division in interleague, and maybe throw in one extra series in intra league or something. Just not every team playing every team. Just find a way to shrink that down a little bit.
Yeah.
NFL does a good job, right? Well, now they have the stupid 17th game, but it's still one.
Soon to be 18.
Yeah.
Very
Soon to
soon.
be 20. I mean, let's face it.
Soon to be. I mean, I'm waiting to see the 52-week season.
Yeah, right. It's
Week 35, like half the players have torn their
Wednesday
ACLs.
afternoon football, week 35. It'll be a 64 team league. So
Across the world too. They're going everywhere.
well, yeah, the Wednesday morning game in Germany. Yeah.
That would actually be kind of nice. Now
that
now
would
that
be
I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna start clamoring for them. Be like, we need the 64 teams. They got to play in the mornings every single day for the rest of the year.
just go back to making it at least like the nice even numbers. At least 16 or 20 would be okay.
If you could go 9-9, I'll be all right. I'll deal
this
with it.
9-8 BS. Just can't take it. It's
It's
terrible.
not even real football.
Don't get me started. We'll be here another 2 hours, and hey, this was fun, man. I'm glad we got to do this. We'll have to, we'll see how our predictions are coming. We got to go back and see how we did there in April.
Yeah, we'll find some time.
I know.
I hope probably more or
Yeah,
sooner than the last time.
absolutely.
And then football's starting up soon too.
Yeah,
So
love that. That's
yeah,
exciting.
we'll probably do it. I'll probably have a few different people on, and we'll get to compare your opinions on each episode or something. Because I
Sure.
have a few other people that I bring on for football as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was fun. Thank you everybody for watching. This was really cool. Make sure to watch episode 1 of the Chaotically Intolerant Classic. It's actually called Summer Smash now. That's the official documentary name. So make sure to check that out on our YouTube. Like and comment, subscribe, helps the algorithm. And we'll see you next week.